Welcome everybody to the last show on the internet. This is it. This is the only one they do anymore. I started a live stream last week, and I said I bought some videos at the dollar store, horror movies. I was going to watch them because Halloween's coming, and then do these videos on them, tearing them apart. And that first one on the alpha test, this movie was terrible. This one was awful. At $1, it was still too much. I stand by that. You can watch this for free if you want on the Octane TV YouTube channel, and if that's what your heart is calling you to do, then so be it. You go ahead and do that. I will. I don't know. I might burn it. I might throw it away. I have not decided. However, today I'm here because I watched two more of these movies, and the original plan, like I said, was to watch these horrible dollar movies, and then come on here and just rip them apart. And these are both from the same company, or at least the same releasing company, I guess. Like, Paramount or Warner Brothers releases films, but they don't always make the films. The films are made by, production companies, and then those other companies will then buy them to put them in theaters or put them on discs, put them on homes, and whatever. These are from the same releasing company. These are from High Octane Pictures, are on YouTube. They are Octane TV, they call themselves now. And I watched two more of their groundbreaking and glorious films. The first one is simply called Pumpkins, and then the second one is Curse of the Scarecrow, which are two of the most generic Halloween-sounding horror movie names that you can possibly imagine. And as I was watching these, of course, they are riddled with problems. There are lighting issues, there's sound issues. They were filmed in Britain, or the UK, I guess, perhaps. And I know we probably shouldn't hold that against them, but, I mean, let's be fair, that's a knock. That's definitely a knock against them. But the thing is, as I'm watching these are straight up slasher movies. I mean, these are your classic throwback to the old VHS 80s slasher films. As opposed to Alpha Test, which was trying to be more of a thriller, tried to have some action, tried to be a little cerebral, and just failed miserably. These are very much, there's a killer, there are people trapped in an isolated area, and then the killer one by one is dispatching these people, and that's pretty much the entire film. And that should be a recipe for disaster, because it's very easy to get that wrong, and we've seen that so many times. There's tons of slasher films from the 80s that are and the 70s, even late 70s and into the 80s, and even into the 90s with the resurgence that they're just bafflingly terrible. Tripped on that word. Won't use that one again. Nonetheless, though, as I'm watching these, I didn't hate them. It was the weirdest thing. Like, they definitely had issues. And I would say of the two, Pumpkins is definitely the stronger of the two. And it might actually be the lower budget, and it may be kind of the worst directed. But I think it's also the one that takes itself less seriously. And because of that, it's more fun, and I'm kind of a little more willing to go along with it because it plays along with that a little more. But really, both of these just had an insane amount of just really ridiculous, bad movie fun to them. So Today for this stream, I do have the trailers. They did make these trailers available on their YouTube page. Curse of the Scarecrow is available for free on their YouTube page. So if you really want to, you can go to their YouTube page. You can watch this one in its entirety for no charge, just because YouTube is that way. Now, Pumpkins, though, like I said, it's the stronger of the two. It'll cost you $5 if you want to rent it directly from their YouTube. Actually, it's not directly from their YouTube page. It's in the YouTube movies and TV section that you can stream it from there or buy it to add to your digital library for $9.99, which I believe is part of Movies Anywhere. So then you can watch it on any Vudu, Fandango, Microsoft Movies, Apple TV, anywhere you've got a Movies Anywhere connected account, you'll be able to watch the glory that is Pumpkins. Of course, you can also go to Dollar Tree or maybe even Family Dollar to pick this up for a single dollar bill, which I would be more inclined to say go that route, even though you're only going to get 480i. If you're one of those that really rubs your nose in the fact that it's not HD and you really want the HD, I guess if you really want 1080p low budget UK slasher films, then by all means pay the $9.99 to purchase the digital copy for your library, or the $5.99 for the streaming rental. But even or maybe it's $4.99, I don't know, but even the streaming rental price being higher, if you had a night when you had a bunch of friends coming over and perhaps you were going to mix up some cocktails for the evening, you're going to watch a few films and hang out and have some fun, Pumpkins might actually be worth it. I hate to admit it, but it's as bad as it is, the badness is kind of the fun of it. So let's pause for a moment and let's take a look at the trailer for Pumpkins.
Remember to look out for your missing team member. The deal was to meet at the first checkpoint by midday. Strange things can happen in these woods.
I've seen a dead body in the woods! Somebody help! Somebody help me! I'm really scared.
Did you hear something?
Now, by no means is this movie redefining the genre. This is not an exploratory ground for new ideas, or are you going to discover the next great talent in Hollywood in this film? But it's an insane amount of fun for probably the $5.25 that they had for a budget to film this. And I wanted to come in here and just tear it apart for being terrible, and I can't, because it's ridiculous. So basically, long story short, the trailer there, it said, man out for revenge in the woods, whatever. There's a guy who owns a pumpkin patch, and this pumpkin patch, really, it's about 3 or 4 pumpkins, because that's all they could afford. But it's an old man. He looks kind of like Blank Reg from Max Headroom. And if you don't know who that is, shame on you, and Google exists, so go look it up. But he is in love with his pumpkins. He talks to his pumpkins. He's always caring for them and nurturing them. And the young hoodlums in town are mad because he chased them off his land, whatever. And so they come back and they egg his house. And one night they come back and they paint faces on all the pumpkins. And that gives the guy a heart attack, and he dies. And these vines come out of the pumpkin patch, and they grab onto him and they pull him in. And when he rises out of the pumpkin patch, suddenly he has a pumpkin on his head. Or more specifically, he's got a rubber latex mask that kind of looks like a jack-o'-lantern. Apparently, it was specifically made for the film. Whoever made the film knew somebody who could make these things, and so they sculpted one specifically for the film. But it honestly doesn't look all that different from something you would find in like a Spirit Halloween store or something like that. Nonetheless, though, it's fun. For just watching a dumb film with a bunch of people that run around and are getting killed, I mean, that's really what it is. It's one of those, there's lots of bad language. There's no real over-the-top gore because they can't afford it. There's no nudity. There's nothing like that because you're just dealing... I would assume most of these people are volunteers who are appearing in this film. A lot of it was shot around some old inn that's also a bar in the UK, in England, in Scotland. I don't know where exactly it is, but somewhere. And so I kind of got the feeling that these people were playing along because they thought it'd be fun to be in a film. And of course, not all of them get killed. So some of them, weren't. They were older. I'll just put it that way. And so they probably didn't have the ability to be a victim as well as the younger people in the film. But I will say one of the nice things, and this is, I think, one of the key things that made this film work so much, is that sometimes when you watch a film like this, there's always some character who's like the abusive boyfriend or stuck-up rich guy, snobby teenage girl, somebody who, within 5 seconds of them being on the screen, you're thinking, I can't wait for that person to get killed. You start to side with the murderer. You're like, okay, off this person because I'm tired of watching them on the screen. All of the characters in here are actually just kind of normal, decent people. I mean, some of them are a little caricature over the top, but they're still just really normal people, and you don't find yourself rooting on the side of the killer going, wow, I really hope all these people die, the way you do with a lot of the other characters, especially if you think of the later Friday the 13th films, when you have a lot of the characters who are supposed to be high school students played by 28 and 29-year-olds, and so they're going over the top trying to be these dumb teenage kids, and you just end up thinking, like, I can't wait for this person to take a machete to the face. Here, none of these people are really unlikable. At the same time, your killer, this old man, the worst thing that these people did to him was paint faces on his pumpkins. He just didn't want anyone touching his pumpkins. And so when they ran into his pumpkin patch and painted faces and then egg his house, he has a heart attack because how dare someone touch his pumpkins. And then he rises from the grave with the power of the great pumpkin or whatever, and he just starts killing them. He's murdering people because they dared to touch his pumpkins. And not only that, but then there's another group of people, but you see them in the trailer where it's like a search party in the woods. Well, they're not really a search party. One kid gets separated from a group that's basically, they're taking a group of teenagers in the woods to try to teach them the essential survival techniques, because, hey, you don't get your phone for the weekend, so you have to learn how to survive, whatever, get some of those essential skills. And one kid gets separated, so then other people are off like trying to find him and whatever, and that's how they get the group to kind of break apart. And at one point they trespass on the guy's land, but then they leave and they go to their base camp. And so I would assume their base camp isn't on this guy's land, it's on their land. They just kind of wandered onto the guy's private property at one point, maybe got off track or whatever, and then made it back to their spot. So then they're getting murdered for really no reason anymore. So, you're okay. These are not people that deserve to die. As opposed to in a lot of the modern slashers where you've got just the absolute worst of humanity, so that when they get offed, you're kind of rooting for the fact that they're dead. So this does include a bonus music video, which apparently one of the actresses in this film was also the director. And so she at one point breaks off from the group, and she's the one that finds the inn full of the old people having drinks and listening to the music, and the killer follows her into this little village, whatever. And so then the music video apparently is her as a little girl wandering through the woods, and then she finds like the killer's jumpsuit and pumpkin mask and is wearing it, but then it cuts in clips of her from the movie. I don't know. It's a music video. Music videos don't always have to make sense. But I will say the band is called Great Northern Hotel, and the band is very synth and slow and atmospheric, which is kind of cool. But there's a lot of times when the music in the film doesn't really match what's going on screen, because what you have on screen is something that is kind of chaotic and exciting, and there's a lot of like, oh my gosh, there's a killer, let's get out of here, let's run, let's go this way, we can't, somebody's hurt, they fell down, they got stabbed in the leg, and now they can't run, and whatever. And the music is just this slow, brooding synth, and you would expect it to like pick up and play into the excitement, and it doesn't. And maybe part of that's because they talked to Great Northern Hotel, and the guys were like, oh yeah, you can use our music, that's cool. And so they had all this music to use, and none of it was really up-tempo. And so they just did what they could with what they had available. And when someone gives you free music, you just go, okay, hey, free music, that's cool. But it kind of took away from certain parts. But again, they had a budget of 12 chicken McNuggets and a 6-pack. So, it's still, they still put together a pretty competent film. And even as low budget as it was, and even with some of the problems it had, it was still better than some of the movies that I've personally paid full price to see in a movie theater projected on the screen. So this doesn't reinvent the slasher genre. It's not full of the greatest talent, but I liked it a whole lot better than some other things I've seen. So, all right. Now, Curse of the Scarecrow. This one's not quite as strong as Pumpkins, but still pretty good. And again, High Octane Pictures put this on their YouTube channel at Octane TV. So we're going to take a quick look at this. So here is Curse of the Scarecrow.
You were 6 years old, you watched your parents being brutally slain in your own home. It's time for you to move forward. I think maybe you should go back there.
It's said that a scarecrow returns each 20 years.
It's not uncommon for people that experience traumatic things to create a fantasy to be able to cope with it.
You think I'm crazy?
Come on!
Yes, but that could just be a coincidence.
A coincidence that every 20 years someone on this land dies or gets murdered.
I know what we'll do. We'll unmask the killer. Let's see what is behind the mask. 1, 2, 3.
You saw it. Can you please tell me that you saw it? Deborah!
We can't stop them until the sun rises.
The souls of the victims are trapped. They are cursed to suffer the same fate as the scarecrows.
Okay, so I think that trailer actually does a better job of laying out the story than the Pumpkins trailer did. You got pretty much all you need to know. So her parents died. She goes back to the house, and it just so happens to be the right day for every 20 years. Scarecrow returns, and that is the curse of the Scarecrow. It comes back to kill. I have to say, the budget on this one was definitely bigger. You probably could tell in those clips. It looked crisper, looked a lot nicer. The lighting was better. You still have some of those issues in the nighttime shots where they, of course, have these giant floodlights in the distance shining down, and then they put a bunch of fake fog, and then they try to put a little dark filter on it to try to make it look more like moonlight or whatever, and it never really works. But still, overall, decent acting all the way through. Really no bad actors appear in this one, as opposed to this one where they got a bunch of locals to just kind of jump in. And one of the other things that I think made this one work pretty well is that you have a house that's isolated out in the middle of nowhere, and when the Scarecrow comes to attack, the car is disabled. They have a hard time being able to leave, and so one character does try to leave, and it doesn't work, and it plays up into the myth of the Curse of the Scarecrow thing. So that does play a part of the small town environment and everybody else nearby, and why they are unable to get away from the killer, and it works. So I give them credit for thinking all of that through. The look of the Scarecrow is a little weird, and I don't know if it's a UK thing. It's the entire time it's a cross, and it's just a dude with his arms on it, and his hands are just kind of holding on to it, and he's actually standing on a little chair, and I'm not sure if you're just not supposed to notice the chair because it's kind of in shadow, and it's obviously down at the bottom of the shot, and so I think maybe they were just trying to downplay it, or if having them up high is more of a US thing, if that was something we did here for some reason, I don't know, or if it's just for the sake of the story, they just need him to be able to jump down and attack people more often, which is something they do. The effects are a little bit better as far as when someone is killed, and again, you don't have the jealous boyfriend, the idiot rich kid, the snobby teenage girl. You don't have any of that stuff, and you do have a wider age range of primary characters. So your main character, she's a little older. You have her brother who appears, her best friend, but then also her doctor, who's her therapist, who's actually trying to help her out, who, of course, just thinks the whole Scarecrow thing is something that she invented in her mind, and it's not real. And then, of course, it turns out to be real, and, that's when all the fun shenanigans happen. And because there is that bigger group of characters and that bigger age range, I think it makes it a little more, again, it makes it a little more fun because you're not dealing with a bunch of idiot kids like in the Geico commercial where it's like, oh, let's go hide behind the chainsaws and let's go hide in the graveyard. They do think things out a little more, and they're only there for like 2 days. So this takes place over a very short period of time. So there's none of the whole as soon as you see something wrong, why didn't you leave? Which you so often think about when you're watching a lot of horror movies, where you think, as soon as you see the first weird thing happen, or the first time you look out and there's someone like standing on the edge of the woods, staring at your house, you're like, I'm gone, right? You're like, I'm out of there. They didn't have the opportunity, not enough time passes for them to go away. So again, it's British, shouldn't hold that against them. Low budget, but not as low. In fact, it kind of looks better than some CW shows. And so, That's a knock on CW. Nobody you'll recognize in it unless maybe you're from the UK, and you watch some dinner theater every now and again. I don't know. They do have some deleted scenes, and most of them are just extensions of scenes that, they took out some dialogue here, or there was something at the beginning that they cut off, and just kind of made it flow a little bit better. But one of the things they did was they changed the ending, or I more than likely they filmed two endings and they weren't sure which one to go with. And I will say the ending is probably one of the weak points, because the whole thing is built around the curse of the Scarecrow. I'm not going to spoil it. I don't want to ruin it. I'm not going to give it away, but it is one of those things where they throw in that twist. And that twist that comes at the end, once you hear it, you're kind of thinking like, really? Like, I'm not sure that works. And they filmed one ending that plays really hard into it. And that's the one they didn't use. And when you watch that ending in the deleted scenes, you're like, I'm glad they cut this, because if that ending would have stayed in, then other parts of the movie wouldn't have made sense. I'll say that. So the ending that they went with made more sense, and I guess you could kind of you could kind of make it work with the ending that they have. Even though I think overall the idea of the curse of the Scarecrow, the curse should just be that it comes back every 20 years and does a bunch of murders. Not quite what they try to pin to it, that they use there at the end of the film. But nonetheless, they did it. It's there. You could say it's sequel bait, but again, they did it on a 20-year schedule. So unless they're going to come back in about 15 years and start working on a sequel, there's not really a whole lot they can do, unless they want to do like a period piece and start going back every 20 years and do a bunch of older ones, which actually might be kind of fun. Go back 40 years, 60 years, 80 years, do some older ones. That I'd probably watch those. I probably would. And again, Curse of the Scarecrow is available. You can watch it for free on their YouTube channel. You can also rent it from I think the Apple Store. I think it might be on Amazon Prime. And then you can buy the DVD if you want to watch it in 480i like I did. And you can get this from Dollar Tree and some Family Dollar locations. So again, Halloween coming. Thought I was going to watch these just to rip them apart and tell you how terrible they were. And I was going to do these as two different videos. But then as I was watching them, I'm just like, you know what? Sometimes low-budget slashers work. And the fact that they're low budget and they're not the same high production values of other movies that you see just kind of lends itself to the genre. And sometimes the fact that they don't take themselves as seriously helps the films to be more fun and exciting. So overall, I give both of these movies a pass. In fact, I give them both kind of those are fun. Maybe check them out if you're into the whole horror movie slasher genre. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.